The Miami Heat and the Panthers have the same thing going on, where it's not just that they're winning and it's excellence, but it's fun to watch beyond the winning because of the way they play, because of how they move the basketball, because of how they look on their best nights. They come back from a road trip against bad teams, but they win all the games by double digits. They're expected to beat the Nets, and they do, even though they did some gagging up at the end of the game. They've won 5 straight. They've got the best record in the Eastern Conference. They're one of only 3 teams with a top 7 offensive rating and defensive rating this season. So they're playing so well that we've brought in one of our big gun correspondents who has talked Heat basketball with us over the years. Poppy LeBatard has lost his free chips. He has lost his media credential because highly questionable came with a media credential. He has to sit in the regular people's seats now. Tell us your assessment so far of what you've seen of this Miami Heat season.
Well, they have surprised everyone, buddy, but they're the real thing. I'm telling you something. There's a bunch of no-names that are going to make it happen.
Make what happen?
They are going to go to the promised land at the end of the season.
All the way to the promised land.
That's right.
You're not afraid of the Suns. You're not afraid of the Warriors. You're not afraid of the...
Nah. With that defense, are you kidding me? That's a no-name defense.
But they have names. It's Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry. These are players.
So you have to win it all to make it to the promised land? You can't... Is getting to the finals the promised land?
Pretty much. They're on their way.
I'm just lost on the no-name thing. They're perennial all-stars now.
Yeah, well, Jimmy, I think he's talking about the Gabe Vincents and the Max Struses of the world.
That too. I mean, that's true. But Gabe Vincent he's a hot hand.
My father says his money's on Gabe Vincent. It's his favorite Heat player. My mother's got a crush that makes me uncomfortable about Max Strus.
He's a very handsome man.
Objectively good looking.
And your mom has excellent taste in men. Isn't that right, Poppy?
That's right. Numero uno.
That's not right.
No?
Your number one or Strus's?
Who's number one?
My wife's taste.
Yeah.
What about this? What do you do with this information? The Heat owns the 6th worst clutch offensive rating this season. 97.8 points scored per 100 possessions in those situations. A clutch game is defined as one that has a margin of 5 points or fewer inside the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. I do believe this.
What do you do with that, Bobby?
I don't think the numbers, sometimes numbers are deceiving. I mean, you can call all kind of numbers, but the name of the game is to take that court and make it happen, and they're making it happen.
That's the most important number.
That's right.
Take that court and make it happen.
That's not a number.
That's not the number? For me, this is a number.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. What am I to do with that? There's nothing that I can do with that other than for him it's not a number.
Do you think we're going to beat the Bucks?
Oh, definitely. Are you kidding me? What happened last year is not going to be repeated this year.
It's going to be what happened 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago when we kicked their cans.
I know. But they came back last year. They kicked our cans.
Well, someone's cans are going to get kicked. And it's not going to be ours this year.
That's
God
right.
damn it.
It's going to be the Bucks. You watch. That Greek guy is going to be leaving South Florida in a hurry.
That Greek guy?
You wanted that Greek guy, right?
Yeah, well, depending how much it was going to be, he was very expensive.
I'd rather have Strus.
Yeah. I'd rather have Vincent.
Oh, for the love of God.
Me too.
Come on.
I'd rather have Gabe Vincent and Max Strus over Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Why not?
Twice on Sundays.
That's right. That's where the difference is. They come through in the clutch.
I just said they don't come through in the clutch. I just gave you the numbers that said that they don't come through.
Well, numbers can be deceiving. The most important number is to go out there and take that court.
They lead the NBA in TTC, MIH. Yeah. Take the court and make it happen, Dano.
Do you guys not worry about late game situations with them, in all honesty?
But I always worry about late game situations because those make me very nervous. But I think Jimmy Butler, just like I always trusted Wade, even though I wasn't a huge fan of contested jumpers, I like calling players, not plays.
Even despite the bad offensive rating in those situations, they are still a net positive in those situations because they're 4th best on defense.
Yeah, we had a game-winning defensive play at the buzzer. You don't really see that often.
Boppy, how did you react to that? PJ Tucker and Kyle Lowry playing some swarming defense at the end. It was fun to watch Kyrie Irving in that fourth quarter. That's him at the height of his skills. Very difficult to guard no matter how good your defense is.
Yeah, it's okay. He went off on the fourth quarter, but at the end, what happened? Kyle Lowry came through, and that was a game. That was a game. You know what I mean? And that's what it counts. He scored, 30 points in the game, and what happened? They lost, so... Even if he had scored 50 points, the name of the game is to win the game.
Well, if they scored 50 points, though, they would have won the game.
Yeah, well, that's true, but they didn't. So,
Do you want Dragic back?
yeah, why not? Dragic would be a nice addition.
Yeah, why not is not the enthusiasm that you throw a slogan around. The yeah, why not? Mike is all excited about Goran Dragic. He's all excited about the fact that tonight it's going to be a Serbian night and
Slovenian night.
Slovenian. Oh,
Super
for the
Bowl
love
week.
of God!
Yeah.
A
Big fine.
$5 fine. Yeah,
No, it's $10 Super Bowl week.
it's not Super Bowl week anymore. I thought Monday ended Super Bowl week.
We're still talking about it.
You're excited about Goran Dragic. It seems to me, I don't understand how I keep reading everywhere that it's going to be this place and this place and this place and the Lakers and everyone's interested. And it seems obvious that he's going to be here. He's practicing here. He's going to the games here. He's hanging out with Markieff Morris.
They never mentioned the Heat. None of the national writers mentioned the Heat as a possible destination for Goran Dragic, and yet he was at the Nets game. Ira is the only person saying don't count out the Miami Heat and all this. It's weird because the general vibe that Heat Twitter was having is if Goran gets traded from the Raptors, well, then he's surely going to come here. And then you realize that Dallas has its appeal because it's Slovenian ties. The national team coach is on that staff, and Luka Doncic is obviously there. So maybe that's a competitor. What would be the reason why you wouldn't sign here? Is it perhaps because of the Gabe Vincent weapon that the Miami Heat have coming off the bench now that Boppy loves? Is that the reason why Goran Dragic may not come down here, because there may not be minutes for him, Dan?
Boppy's assessment of why not on Goran Dragic, to me, I would be more excited about that because I don't think it's going to be about money with him at this point in his career. I just don't think that his allegiances and his emotions and his ties to this team, the way that he forced his way out of Phoenix, messily having the first mess of his life, has a lot of fun down here, gets ingrained in the culture down here. And I don't mean just the culture of the Miami Heat that you're tired of talking about. I'm saying that he's a Miamian. He's still in Miami all the time. I would think that the emotional knowledge of the system, the people that he's worked for, I would have guessed that it would be automatic. He goes from Toronto to buyout to Miami, but then you see that everyone is interested. And if everyone's interested with the late part of his career, that means there might be money involved. Like it might be a substantive amount of money. And the Lakers can certainly use someone like that.
He would be their best point guard. He's better than Russell Westbrook right now. I mean, I haven't seen Goran Dragic since the postseason last year, but that Goran Dragic was certainly better than this Russell Westbrook.
But what would you value at this point if you were him? Like, where would you put the... If you're
I'd value ring chasing. I would ring chase, and you're not going to ring chase with the Los Angeles Lakers. I know they got LeBron James, but they also got a play-in tournament in which maybe Goran helps their chances, maybe. But right now, I don't think that they're better than the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I would do the ring chasing thing, and what better team to do that than with your Miami Heat?
Aren't all the teams, though? Like, this is your assessment. You're saying what better team to do that with. But I don't know how much better he thinks he would make the Lakers with his ego if I give him minutes and shooting. I don't know how much better he thinks he would make the Mavs. The last 10 games, Doncic is playing his way into shape and is in shape. You've seen the last 10 games of Doncic, and they're enormous games, and now the Mavericks are good again. I don't know what he views for himself. I'm sure he wants minutes. I'm sure he doesn't want to sit behind Gabe Vincent.
Yeah, there's a reason why every major contender is being reported as interested in Goran Dragic, because he's very good. This is a prize. This isn't, the remnants of some former all-star that is just looking to grab an elusive ring. He can really help you win that elusive ring. Like the Milwaukee Bucks, he's a great fit there. He's a good fit for pretty much every contender. In fact, the fit that I'm trying to wrap my head around is actually, believe it or not, Miami's. Although, I mean, Amin did a good job of saying how Goran would fit in. Considering all the injuries that Miami's had this year, why not make this mash unit a bit deeper?
Oh, but this is not a Miami Heat choice. You say, why not make this mash unit deeper? Miami Heat, he'd be here already if it was up to the Miami Heat. He'd be in uniform as fast as possible. This isn't up to the Miami Heat. It's very much up to Goran Dragic. And I ask you guys this question. Make yourself him, because your chance at minutes is really as the insurance backup plan in case Kyle Lowry gets hurt. That's where your chance at the most minutes is, and it's why he would be so valuable to the Heat, because you can make the argument the last time they made it to the finals, it was Goran Dragic's health that undermined them in a fluke bubble season where Anthony Davis decides this is going to be the one time in the last 3 years where I can actually shoot.
Yeah,
They could have used Goran Dragic in that series.
100%. They might have won that series even with the injury to Bam if Goran Dragic was healthy. He exploited one of their weaknesses. Goran Dragic is a terrific player, and I really hope he re-signs with the Miami Heat because I believe him to be the best point guard in Miami Heat history. And I think he should have his jersey retired here.
That's a good question right
And
there.
I think he's better than Tim Hardaway.
Tim Hardaway's more inefficient. He
Yeah.
wasn't the same kind of efficient player.
I think Goran Dragic is the best point guard in Miami Heat franchise history. I would love to see Goran get his jersey retired, but if you start looking at the resume, and I'm not really sure how the Miami Heat do this in terms of who gets their number retired out there, but he probably could use another deep postseason run. He certainly could use some more hardware. And if he wins a title, I mean, if you're Goran, why the Miami Heat, outside of my obvious heartfelt ties there, is because he could be remembered as a legend, as one of that franchise's legends. It wouldn't be this debate. Is he better than Tim Hardaway? I don't know. If he wins a title down here, it'd be pretty irrefutable.
I feel like he's been a good player for the Heat, but not like hang him up in the rafters worthy.
Yeah. But what if he wins a title?
But he wouldn't be the reason they won a title. It would just be on a title team.
The rafters are pretty lenient at this particular arena, and they're emotional as much as they are anything.
Who have they been lenient with? That shouldn't be up there.
Dan
Shaq.
Marino and Michael Jordan.
Oh, well, other sports, but Heat players.
They've got Olympic jerseys up there.
No, they add that to the well, they have banners for gold medals, and if you're in the Hall of Fame, they add that lower third there. It's really Shaq. Shaq is, if you look at it on merit, he wasn't here long enough, potentially. That's not the issue with Goran Dragic. I think he was here long
Shaq
enough.
was, I mean, other than Wade, Shaq was the second reason that
Well,
we
it was but it was also a massive turning point in the history of
right.
the franchise.
Which
It would
is
be
what-
like Miami became a destination immediately afterwards.
Which is what Pat Riley cited at that jersey retirement for Shaquille O'Neal, is that it signified we've arrived, we're big game hunting, this changes the culture within this building.
And if you're doing it off of like significance to the fan base, Haslam is the one that's going to go in where like someone else around the country would be like, really, Haslam in the rafters? But it's it's an unassailable case for him to be up there. But that's like a feeling thing.
And well, but so too would it be with Dragic. I just find it funny that Mike is now retiring his jersey and saying how valuable he is and that he's the best point guard in history when he replaced him with Tyler Johnson.
Yeah, Tyler Johnson would have been a better fit for some of those teams. At least I admitted that I was super wrong there. Super wrong. I got caught up in the Bumpy Johnson hype.
I
And
just
I thought he was a
love
better
that
catch and shoot player. I was very wrong.
What a moment 2016 was in the history of NBA basketball.
Yeah.
For him to just happen upon free agency when the amount of money in the market ballooned up and he just makes $50 million out of nowhere. What a career. That could only have happened on the exact trajectory that he was on.
I thank you again for the opportunity to apologize to Goran Dragic. I shouldn't have said that. That was stupid. It was very stupid of me. He's a much better player than Tyler Johnson, even though what I was trying to say was catch and shoot, but whatever. I was wrong. Either way you slice it. That was very wrong.
The qualifiers don't help you any, and I do enjoy reminding you of it because you have followed Goran Dragic since he was with the Suns. He was on when he was,
he was
sixth
on our
man
show.
of the year. Or what, a rookie of the year as well? Was he rookie of the year as well?
No, he wasn't rookie of the year.
He finished like third or something. We had him on a couple of times.
I think he made an All-NBA team. I think it was like third team All-NBA that Phoenix season when they like won way more games than anybody expected. They were playing like that 3-guard backcourt with him and Isaiah Thomas.
He's had messy exits there and in Toronto. He had to apologize for some of the things that he said in Toronto.
While wearing a culture T-shirt.
Okay, but
It's incredible. Like, why wouldn't he sign here?
why hasn't he already
I
been
don't know.
announced as signing here? What is the holdup?
I don't know. It's probably money and the fact that he has a bunch of suitors and he has to sift through what's important to him and his family.
But what should be? You said ring chasing.
My feelings.
If you're him, though, your feelings.
My feelings should be what he's prioritizing. I already did the hard part. I apologized. And he was a guest on Chelsea Mic'd Up. We're good.
Legend.
I love him.
I feel like he would go straight into being the Lakers starting point guard, though.
Yeah, he's better than Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
He
So,
never
like, if
actually
you're going
played
on the
with
basis
LeBron
of role, like, they'll probably at least make the play-in. Like, he could considerably lift that team if he's still 70% of what he was
But
2
does he
years
believe
ago.
he could lift them to championship?
No way.
I mean, they need like 3 Dragic's to get to championship.
yeah.
I never know what a guy's ego is in these circumstances, though. I don't know what a guy thinks he is. It's easy for us to say, well, shrug our shoulders and say, well, these are the clear title contenders. But I don't know what he's saying. Oh, if I were with Doncic, do you know how much better that team? I don't know what he's thinking.
Right, but if he's applying that math to the Lakers and Mavs, do it to the top-seeded Miami Heat. He's like, oh, they're definitely a title. If he thinks that he is the missing piece for those franchises, why not? Well, they'll definitely win the title if I'm over there. You know what I want most for Goran Dragic in all of this is the moment, if he does indeed decide to return to Miami, the outpouring from the fans who got caught up in the acquisition of Kyle Lowry. It was a weird goodbye. And since then, he's kind of been longing for Heat culture and those Heat fans to bring him back into the fold and to just celebrate him on social media and hit that first check-in into the game. Oh, I want that moment for Goki so bad.
You got it for Mario Chalmers, and he never even got out onto the court.
I'm still pissed off about that. Miami Heat mess up. They mess up in not playing Mario Chalmers 1 minute. Why wouldn't they give us that? Be a crowd pleaser occasionally, right, guys? Right, Poppy?
Oh, sure, but Mario got a hell of a deal. He got about 100 grams, and all he did was sit on the bench.
He's got $100,000, and now he's in South Dakota.
Well, I mean, that's it. You cannot have it, once in a while you got to give a little bit to get a lot. So what can I tell you?
Well, it sounded like you said he got 100 grams while he was here, and I don't know what Boppy knows that the rest of us don't know, but it sounds like they were paying him in something other than money. If it was measured in grams.
No, I say grams. That was a slip of the tongue.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Poppy. Were you disappointed that Mario Chalmers didn't play at all, or that's it?
Yes, I was, but I was happy for him because he makes some real good money when he came down.
Is
here.
that not the easiest $100,000 that any human being has ever made? To stay in shape reasonably, just be available. You get a call, sit on the bench for 10 days, make 100 G's. That's like as ideal of a situation to make money as is possible.
You say the easiest 100 grand, but I would say it might be my father who wanted to quit Highly Questionable, held out with ESPN thinking they wouldn't call his bluff. Then they called his bluff and gave him a pay raise, and he went back to working on Highly Questionable. So my father...
Is that calling a bluff, or is that bluff, or giving in to the bluff? Because if they gave him a pay raise, then that's a negotiation tactic that worked, my friend.
I know, but it's 100 grand that my father got, I would say, the easy way by threatening to do something he didn't want their money anyway.
He put his position in highly questionable in peril.
Well, it's like playing poker. Once in a while, you got to bluff with a pair of deuce anyhow.
You do. That's true. It's a life lesson for all of you. Everyone, you gotta bluff, even though you got a pair of deuces.
What can I tell you?
That's a mighty nice free quarter zip you got.
Yeah.
That's a classic. I had that one too. I probably wore that one like 70 times.
I wanted to wear something that was the Goldenest Canes approval, and my TVD jerseys in the wash, so I had to wear this. We're almost there.
You feel good walking out like with that free, right? Like, yeah.
It is pretty nice.
Yeah, you feel like you're stealing.
I would say it's
Nike.
a better than average freebie.
I'd say an elite freebie.
I don't know about that.
The best of the free. What's a better freebie that you've gotten than that? That's like an $80
He's got
quarter
a
zip jacket.
bag. Yeah, he's got a bag from Barcelona that from the Barcelona
he's so
Olympics
used to
that 1992.
I have so many satchels in my garage from Super Bowls and everything.
Right.
I should sell them. Put them on eBay.
You should. What are you waiting for?
I know.
I was 6 when they gave you that free bag at the Barcelona
Okay.
Olympics.
And I was thinking of you.
6 years
What
old.
is the oldest thing do you imagine that you own? Like if we were to go, Chris Cody, I need some help here. If we were to go through your dad's house, what is the oldest thing that he owns? I think immediately of the shoes because I feel like he's been wearing them since 1980.
There's got to be a T-shirt. There has to be, or like a pair of jeans. Or,
There's some socks in there. That,
oh yeah.
Like what he wears with like tennis shoes if he's playing tennis that like scrunch up. These like old style socks that they don't even really make anymore. I feel like that's got to be up there. I'm trying to think.
The old tennis socks, huh?
I would say my wallet, my Barcelona bag, and I have an Elton John shirt from the Fox album, which I don't know when that came out. I think it was an early 80s album.
How often do you wear that shirt? My favorite moment of your show last week is when you opened that aforementioned wallet and there was a pebble in it and some dust. I could see a pebble and some dust, but not a single solitary cent or dollar.
1981 on the Fox album.
Okay, 1981. I never wear it because 1981 was about 25 pounds ago. So the T-shirt is a little snug on me at this point.
That's pretty good, though. I mean, you're 50 Cent trying to wear the same outfit 20 years later during the Super Bowl. And it doesn't look quite as well, but the fact that you can get into it at all, even if it's snug.
Right. Yeah, when I saw 50 Cent, or is it 50 or 50? 50. I think both are acceptable.
You too.
But
you too.
Stugotz being the authority on that.
You too. I mean,
I came in hot.
Some people,
Two Americans.
Some people were correctly saying, unless it's Juju or Tony, that this show should not be talking about hip hop. But we got into the argument yesterday about whether 50 Cent belonged on that stage. And forgive me for interrupting you, but my point was, and I don't know if I'm right about this, that everybody on that stage was an artist, and 50 Cent was popular, and those are not the same thing. That's the way that I view that one. Like 50 Cent, I know his catalog is better than Flo Rida's, but I think of him as popular, not an artist.
So thankfully, I went out with the take that, yeah, he did deserve to be out there. And then I researched his bona fides. Get Rich or Die Trying won platinum 12 times. He was the biggest music artist. You can make an argument for like 2 years. He was an absolute phenomenon. He didn't have the longevity that other people on that stage had, certainly in terms of mainstream hits, but I mean, he dropped absolute classics.
But you're not making the distinction I'm making between artist and popular, that those aren't the same thing. That you can be really famous like the Kardashians.
Yeah, but he was a cameo, right? That was a nice little Easter egg for people that followed, just like Anderson .Paak was. Anderson .Paak made his debut on Dr. Dre's album that came out a few years ago. He was trying to show that he was a kingmaker, and he had all his proteges there with him.
The Super Bowl halftime show is also not on the basis of art. It is on the basis of popularity. They're trying to find immensely popular people to cater to 110 million people that are watching on television. So, yeah, you do go for a big name like 50 Cent, who, as Mike just said, had a 12 times platinum album.
Which shocks me because, I'm a casual hip-hop fan, and I know In the Club, which he performed. And other than that, I really don't know his catalog.
Well, that in that respect, we
I'm being honest.
we are
I'm surprised
probably
you
not.
won.
We
I
are
mean-
probably not the most qualified to be discussing this, and this feels like the parody of a hip hop show. The three of us discussing this, although I'm still beaming from the Super Bowl, tailoring all of its marketing to me, to my demo. I'm still touched by this, even as I rail against the NFL. I'm flattered that the NFL has deemed my demo worthy of all their commercials. I forgot that the Scrubs guys were out there too, running around.
Oh, that's right. Oh man.
This is a hot take, but I would venture to say that out of everybody that appeared in that Super Bowl halftime show, 50 Cent has the biggest song out of anybody there. I would say In the Club is probably bigger than Nothing But a G Thing and Lose Yourself. That's probably the competition.
Okay, can I walk it back then? Because I really don't mean it as disparagement, even though there's no way for it not to be disparagement for me to say he's popular and they're artists and to say that he doesn't belong on the stage. Am I wrong in my appraisal? I wanted to tie it back to Matt Stafford because we got here quick. Richard Sherman is already saying, not a Hall of Famer. After Alex Smith came on with us yesterday and said, surefire first ballot Yellow Jacket. That's how much can change with a play. And
It's ridiculous.
well, I'm
sorry.
like, we got here fast on the argument, but it's like pornography. Google has ruined the sports argument, but in this space, it's still like, do you think Stafford's a Hall of Famer? Yes or no? And you're not going to look at any of the numbers. You're just going to sort of ask yourself, well, no, he doesn't seem like a Hall of Famer to me. And I'm not going to do the parsing on the organization, dragged him down, made 2 other players quit. I'm just going to say it's like pornography. I know it when I see it. And I saw a bunch of artists on that stage and also 50 Cent.
Right. I would agree with that. But in the case of Stafford, in the hot take era, you can't equivocate. He either is or isn't a Hall of Famer. I'm in the middle. I think he's an arguable Hall of Famer, and I think Sunday night he made a case for himself that he did not have.
In the
beforehand.
middle?
He's in the middle.
You can't
Mike
do that.
Ryan's mouth is hanging open because of something that he just looked up.
How many times do you think Matthew Stafford has made the Pro Bowl?
It's never, isn't it? Or one?
He has made it as many times as Mac Jones has.
Jesus.
1 Pro Bowl appearance for Matthew Stafford.
Mhm.
It rocked my world in this economy.
Did you see Richard Sherman's comment on this? Because he was citing the stats. You rarely see an active player do this to anybody, put his name on this kind of slander.
Mike, has he been invited to Pro Bowls and just not shown up because a lot of guys don't show up?
Because Mac Jones was an injury replacement, and it goes in there as if he went there on his own merit. I mean, they were never really in the playoffs. They never made it far.
Right.
He was constantly battling through injuries, but 1 Pro Bowl?
Well, you look up the number of Pro Bowls made by players from really lousy teams, and that will be a small number. It was his surrounding talent and his perpetual 6-10 season that held him back more than talent.
Rodgers has only made the Super Bowl once. Drew Brees was a perennial Pro Bowler. He played in an NFC that had a lot of greats. Matt Ryan would probably be slotted over Matthew Stafford prior to this Super Bowl victory in terms of where you would stack them.
No
Greg,
doubt.
here's the deal, though. If you're great, you'll make any team great. It's not the Lions. The Bengals are the equivalent of the Lions. Joe Burrow came in there and made the Bengals great right away. Matthew Stafford did not have the ability to do that. Why? Because he's not that good.
Okay, it can be something between not that good and first ballot, Yellow Jacket, Hall of Famer, surefire. What I'd like to address before we get into, and it's just so great that we fall into it just so naturally. He just won the championship. We've been dragging this guy for 12 years. He just won. Enough, says Stugotz. Enough. And he just won, and we already get to the argument where we're going to do this, whether he is or isn't a Hall of Famer.
You know who else won? Aaron Donald, the defense, Jalen Ramsey,
Right.
Floyd, Von Miller won his 2nd Super Bowl. Okay, those guys won too,
Yeah,
not just Matthew.
And Beckham, even though he was injured early in the game, he won as well.
And how many of those people throw a no-look pass on the game-winning drive?
None of them.
And how many of the people on that field or any field you've ever seen have had a drive as important as the one at the end of that game led by that quarterback?
At least 5.
Okay, we'll get to your top 5 list in a second.
I think it's fair to say that he might be in the conversation now.
Exactly,
He's-
which is what I said.
Yeah, he's 34 years old. I
But
think he's got to. It's fair to say he needs to do a little bit more to get.
Would
in
he have
there.
been in the conversation if Boyd had made a catch?
He wouldn't have been in the conversation if that San Francisco 49er held on to the interception that he threw in the NFC Championship
Right.
game.
Here are the words from Richard Sherman, because this is not something that you see very often, Stugotz, where an active player on this is this hating? Does this qualify as hating? Because the words are pretty strong from an active player, and I don't think Richard Sherman would like to be seen as a hater. But I don't see a whole lot of other people seeing the Matthew Stafford story. I don't even know what the animus behind that would be. Would it be that Rams won and Sherman considers himself a 49er? What is it? Would there be any bias behind this, or is it just I decided to say that Matthew Stafford isn't that good with this quote? I'm going to talk about it on the podcast, but the Hall of Fame bar is incredibly low now, like a participation trophy. No all-decade team, no all-pro, no MVP, one Pro Bowl, not even MVP of the Super Bowl, never considered the best in any year he played. At least Matt Ryan has an MVP.
He's right.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All
totally
fair.
Yep.
And here's one other thing. ProFootballReference.com, which I think is pretty good. They say the average Hall of Famer has a 104 rating by their Hall of Fame monitor, and Stafford's right now is 58.4, barely over 50% of the qualifying number.
But instead of examining, because I'm not actually interested in talking about whether he's borderline Hall of Famer. We do this all the time. I did it last week with the difference between superstar and star. Is Kyrie Irving a superstar and star? There are a whole lot of degrees we do this with.
I did it last week with Dick Vermeil.
We're going to do your top 5 drives in a second.
He's going to be scrambling to come up with a top 5.
What are you talking about? All right, let's do this. Let's prove Greg Cote immediately wrong. Here it is. Stugotz's top 5 drives of all time. Number 5.
82 NFC Championship game, Dan. The Niners down 27-21 to the Dallas Cowboys. Joe Montana, 89 yards away. He gets all 89 of the yards, hits Dwight Clark in the end zone. The catch. The Niners win 28-27.
Yep. The original Joe Cool.
Yeah. How about that? Launched his career.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Can you be Joe Cool if you're black? Number 4.
The 89 Super Bowl, 49ers and Bengals, Montana, John Candy in the stands. The Niners go on to win the Super Bowl.
John Candy in the stands.
Bizarre reference.
It's a great reference. It's not. Do you know what he's referencing there? Do you know?
The Candyman.
You should know the story, Greg. It happened. I think it was a Miami Super Bowl, and it's the story that everyone was telling. The same way we construct the myth after the Super Bowl. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Cooper Kupp is now saying, he told reporters, he counted it up, he and Matthew Stafford worked more than 500 plus hours beyond the regimen of whatever it is they were obligated to do. This is the storytelling that's going to start now on that no-look pass cannot happen if they hadn't done all that practice beforehand. 500 plus hours, he counted up, more than that. That's what you're going to do now with John Candy, because Joe Montana looked in the stands before that drive and cracked up his teammates because he was so Joe Cool that he's like, there's fat-ass John Candy in the stands, and it lightened the mood.
Whoa, too soon. Come on,
It
man.
lightened the
Gratuitous.
It lightened the load. I
Glass house.
thought I was allowed to do that. I thought I was allowed to do that for my ass house.
Did Candy get a Super Bowl ring or no?
He should have.
He should have.
Yes.
Number 3.
A game Greg Cote covered, the 1958 NFL Championship. Colts and Giants. Dan, the Colts are down 17-3 at halftime. They're down 17-14 late. Johnny Unitas drives them for a game-tying field goal, takes them to overtime, and then a 10-play, 80-yard drive for a tutty, and Johnny U wins an NFL championship.
Yeah, Johnny Cool.
Number 2.
What's the matter, Mike? Johnny U.
You remember that like it was yesterday.
I
Number
did.
2.
It's a
All of
great
this
drive.
All of this is right off the top of the dome. He's got the Johnny Unitas game logs in his head. Number 2.
2008 Super Bowl, the Patriots going for the undefeated season. Eli Manning sticks a football right in David Tyree's face mask. The Giants go on to win, and the perfect season is ruined.
You would think in your personal record book, you'd say that should have been called a sack.
Listen, that was a great drive. I mean, you got to give Eli credit there. Maybe it was a sack, but that was a great clutch drive. You had a team trying to go undefeated. The greatest team ever, maybe, and the Giants got it done. Eli got it done.
Number 1.
The drive.
Eli Cool.
Need I say more?
Pacific Coast Highway got robbed.
I thought he was going to go with like a golf drive at the end. I thought
was
he
thinking
was
about it.
Yeah.
or O.J. Simpson's chase. Or
Oh,
something.
the Bronco chase.
Like I
That
thought.
was,
New
the,
top
that was the
five
drive he
coming
was
up.
talking about with the Bronco.
It's a good call, Mike. You should do a top 5 drive
Yes,
list.
I wish I wrote that.
Yes.
Number 1, the drive, the Bronco.
What do you mean you wish he wrote that? Of course his list is going to be Johnny U, and number 1 is just going to be the drive. Need I say more? Yes, you should. In fact,
That's my list. I mean-
demand that you say more on the drive. Give us all the details.
John Elway made some classic play, scrambling around against a good Browns defense outside in the cold grass field. He hit Sammy Winder and a couple of screen passes, hit Mark Jackson for a big 15-yard pass at some point. It was like a 25-play, 80-yard drive. It was probably shorter than that, but it felt like 25 plays. He had those wide receivers, Ricky Nattiel and Mark Jackson and guys like that. And I'm telling you, he used every one of them, Dan. It was a great drive. It's Sammy Winder. Someone needs to look it up. I'm pretty certain he gained 50 of the 80 yards on that drive.
I prefer a recollection by the group.
And Gerald Wildheit, oh my God, a little scat back out of the backfield. He had a big, like 14-yard screen pass on that drive. Sammy Winder needed a blow.
I want the group
Cold.
to remember and reminisce right now and talk about the way that Stugotz just did nostalgically about that drive, about O.J. Simpson's drive. I want to just...
Dan, you had Al Callings on the phone. He was driving, said OJ had a gun to his head, the white Bronco. There were all sorts of signs on the overpass. You had Bob Shapiro on the phone talking to network television. And then Cato Kalin was doing stand-ups outside of OJ's home. You delayed the start of the Knicks Rockets series. It wasn't I didn't appreciate that being a Knicks fan. We'll get into that in a moment.
There were helicopters. People were reporting that he had a mustache, a passport, and cash in Al Cowlings.
People were having
Car.
pizza parties. Back then, you had to call everybody. Are you watching this?
I was at Mark Freitas' house in his basement. We were doing bong hits. I mean,
Then someone called and said Baba Booey.
I remember
during,
that.
newscast.
Yeah, it was like during Nightline or like ABC. Everybody in the country was watching their television, and then somebody called as Baba Booey and got through to Ted Koppel. I heard somebody. It was like somebody from our show making an appearance as a crank.
Right then, a nation decided, oh, he did it. Because I remember there being some like ambiguity. Did he or didn't he? Let's hear his side of the story. And then all of a sudden there's this huge chase and you're like, yeah, he did it.
Sammy Winder had 14 yards on that drive. Gerald Wildheit was not on the team. Sorry.
You know what I was hoping for, Stugotz? I was hoping that somebody would go back through all of that because I can't whack-a-mole on you. You've gotten too fast at the incompetence. Like I can't. It's like
I got Mark Jackson right.
It's the way. It's like Trump.
You used him twice, I noticed.
It's the new Trump politics of just flood the zone with lies and shamelessness, and people just won't be able to keep up. It'll be so much of it that you can't keep up. I'm guessing that people could go through the information that you just sausage fingered your way through on that drive and find out that most, if not all of it, is wrong.
Go ahead, I dare you.
I was hoping that somebody was doing that for us as it was going, because I imagined somebody in the audience making sure to be meticulous enough, like, wait a minute, Stugotz did those others where he had actually looked up some of the details.
I have all 15 plays if you want to go through them one by one.
What a 15-play drive. I mean, on the road.
They begin with 1st and 10 on their own 2-yard line. John Elway, 5-yard completion to Sammy Winder.
What'd I tell you?
I remember it.
They then ran the ball 3 straight times.
Yeah.
3-yard run, 2-yard run, 3-yard run. Then John Elway scrambles for 11 yards.
A great scramble.
Then back-to-back completions from John Elway, a 22-yarder to Steve Sewell.
Sewell, yeah. That's the guy I was thinking was Gerald Wildheit.
Well, is Ricky Nattiel around here anywhere?
I don't think so.
doing
I don't see his
a little
name on
early
here
on
now.
Nattiel, yeah.
I don't see his name. Then a 12-yard completion to Steve Watson.
Oh, yeah.
This wait a minute. I just want the audience to know that I'm serious about this because this is the thing. The rate of speed with which Stugotz is now spewing the incompetence comes so fast and strong that I have indelibly seared in my mind him saying Ricky Nattiel and pointing at me with one of his tells, his lying sausage finger point. And I'm saying to myself, but I can't keep up. I'm like, was Ricky Nattiel on that team? And what did he do anything on that drive? But Stugotz just kept shouting names, and Sammy Winder had 50 of the 88 yards, and just bullshit, just an endless stream of bullshit.
Thank you.
We get to the 2-minute warning. Following the 2-minute warning, an incomplete pass from John Elway.
Wow, what a miss.
Then on 2nd down and 10 from the Cleveland 40, a sack of John Elway by Dave Puzzoli.
Yep.
What?
It's 3rd and 18.
Big Dave.
And John Elway hits Mark Jackson for 20 yards.
Told you.
Big play.
Yeah.
Then an incomplete pass intended for Steve Watson. Then a 14-yard completion into the red zone to Steve Sewell.
As you're reading this, I'm still hoping the Browns pull this one out. Like, I'm going to be crushed by the end of your play-by-play.
You're sitting there and you're
We're so
saying,
close
they're
to
not
the
going to
Super
beat me
Bowl.
with Sewell, are they? They're not going to beat me with Sewell.
We had the big sack by Bazzoli.
1st and 10 from the Cleveland 14, an incomplete pass. On 2nd and 10 from the 14-yard line, a 9-yard run, a scramble from John Elway. And then on 3rd down and 1 from the Cleveland 5,
This is it.
a 5-yard completion from John Elway to Mark Jackson. Rich Carless adds the extra point. And the Broncos tie the game at 20. I didn't realize the game went to overtime. So the drive was a tying drive.
Just to
How
get
about
into
that?
overtime, yeah.
How
Yeah.
much time
98
was
yards.
How much time was left in by the time that John Elway scored on what was the
There was
drive?
5:32 left in the game. 98 yards in 5 minutes and 32 seconds.
Chiefs and the Bills scored like 40 points in those 5 minutes in a playoff.
It was a different time, Dan.
There were 5 minutes left in the game. They left like 7 series on the field.
That's why it's called the drive.
Why didn't Kozar come back in that game?
Kozar had 39 seconds. That's a lifetime for any quarterback these days. I mean,
Kozar did come back in that fourth quarter, but then Elway came back on him.
yeah.
Great duel.
No, but Dan's saying that Elway left 39 seconds on the
Yeah,
clock.
too much time.
Not for Bernie.
Maybe for Tessa Verde's arm, but not for Bernie's.
Oh, you're talking about the Greg Cote wheelhouse right now.
Yeah.
Bernie
Greatest UM arms.
Kozar and
Vinny the T. Vinny the T.
Vinny the T.
Riding a moped in camouflage. Yeah.
Let's do the glory days. Come on, Greg. Let's do your Miami Hurricane coverage days. Vinny the T
Yes.
making the University of Miami matter because he's riding a moped in camouflage.
Right. Yeah, that would be
Shocking.
That would definitely be in my top 5. So would Michael Irvin's toe being run over by a law student when he got too close to the traffic, and then that was a big brouhaha. Luckily, he wasn't hurt seriously, but I definitely remember that.
Didn't George Myra have a steroid suspension while you were
Yes,
at
he
the
did.
hospital giving birth to your youngest son?
Yes. I'll never forget that. I was in the hospital.
Well, you just did
It
forget
seems like he did.
How do you know his life better than he does?
Right. Yeah.
Having
Right.
been reminded of it says I'll never forget it.
Yeah, and Christopher's here to attest to this. You know, he was an eyewitness. Christopher was, about the size of a prune at the time, coming out and birth. He was hours old.
I'm your older son. You know that.
Yeah, you were my firstborn.
Oh, I thought Dan said younger son. I didn't know when
I
this
didn't know
happened.
which son.
Yeah,
it was
no.
your first. So this was you
I
were,
got that you were the size of a prune, no matter what.
Right.
and then
pink
and
prune.
that your father will never forget this story, even having forgotten it 4 seconds before he told it.
That's correct. But now I'll remember it because you jogged my memory. But
What do you remember about it?
So
Tell us.
Myra Jr. gets busted for steroids, and it's a big scandal. And Paul Anger, my executive sports editor at the time, calls me in the hospital room as I'm a first-time father and says, hey, I know it's a big day. I hate to ask, but are you willing to write this story? And George Myra and blah, blah, blah. And I politely said no. And from that day forward, he never called me again.
Nor did he support your career as much after that.
From that day on, I referred to him as Paul Anchor, A-N-C-H-O-R.
Attaboy.
For all the good he did to me. And if you're listening, Paul, hey, that's on you, not me.
His name is Paul Anger. I know that's a good joke, Paul Anchor, but I'm not sure people didn't hear it that way the first time.
Right.
And do you have another top two? Is that 3 stories so far?
Well, of course, the steak incident, on the road at the Fiesta Bowl. I was there that night. And, I think it was Jerome Brown, wasn't it, who likened it to Pearl Harbor. And they had worn camouflage on the trip. They're descending from the plane in camouflage. And it was a big deal for some reason because Jimmy Johnson's teams were notorious. That I used to refer to them as the biggest, baddest team in America. And that became a big tempest, the idea that they would show up in camouflage and then liken the game to Pearl Harbor, and it was like a big deal. It was much ado about nothing for me, but it was fun. Man, I never had more fun than when I covered those teams.
Not even at that 1981 concert that you went to in a shirt that would be too tight right now?
Right, not even then.
And the number one memory that Greg Cote has that he can't quite remember about covering the University of Miami.
Oh, boy.
In the glory days of it becoming a signature program in the United States and beyond.
It's tough to put these in order, but coming to mind is the great late Edwin Pope, my mentor, and myself, and a blessedly unnamed Hurricanes head coach in a hotel room prior to a game, just absolutely getting shit-faced on a gigantic tub of beer. And the coach went on to win that game. They may have been playing Rice. It may have been a 48-3 game, but that was an experience. That opened my eyes because I was naive at the time. I'm in my 20s. I was naive.
Didn't you get so drunk once that you couldn't find on a work trip once that you couldn't find your way back to your hotel? Like you had to hop in a cab?
Well, that was another Pope story. Pope was, and now that it's been a period of time, I think I'm free to tell the story, but Edwin used to fill his hotel room with the bathroom sink full of white wine, and he bought it in the big jugs, not the little
Is that where you learned to do it with Miller Lite?
Pretty much, yeah.
I do the same thing.
I said he was my mentor, didn't I? But so Edwin and I are drinking that night in a bar, and we're both a little bit tipsy. And I don't encourage this, kids listening. Alcohol's bad for you. But Edwin and I were extremely tipsy that night. And so we're staggering out of the bar at like 4 a.m. And Edwin, this is way before Uber, decades before Uber. And Edwin's like,
you don't say.
Gotta call a cab. How do we call a cab around here? And it turns out the bar was adjacent to the hotel.
You just walked out. You were standing in front of the hotel.
As he's saying, how do we get a cab around here? We're literally looking at the front of the hotel. And it took me a minute to realize that as well. So that was a fun night.
I believe that's the night that Edwin fell down in his hotel room, cut his shoulder on the corner of a drawer, and then came home to his wife with a huge scar on his chest and told her that he had come out of the elevator in the Colt Stadium and been stabbed by a forklift.
Right.
That's a heady play.
It's true. A forklift. Yeah.
I've never seen you happier than telling those stories.
A rare forklift injury. Right. That's not to count the time we had to scale a big, tall chain link fence because we were so late that night writing that the stadium was locked by the time we got out. And, Edwin, who was, 20 years older than me, helping him over a 9-foot tall chain link fence was an experience. That was interesting. Luckily, I didn't drop him. And that was the day of the big Texas Instrument computer. That was before laptops. So my computer weighed about 40 pounds. It was like a suitcase. It was unbelievable. Memories. Are we on the air or are we off? I don't know. What happened?